We need to start with what just happened because this is no longer within the realm of gossip blogs. This has become the focus of mainstream media. NBC News is reporting that Bill Gates has admitted to having extramarital affairs. The Times of Israel also reported that he confirmed relationships with 2 Russian women, while calling his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein a terrible mistake. So let's be really clear about this. He has admitted to the affairs. He has admitted that meeting Jeffrey Epstein was a huge mistake of judgment. What he hasn't admitted are the more shocking allegations found in the communications related to Jeffrey Epstein, including speculation that he contracted a sexually transmitted disease and sought out antibiotics to give to his wife without her knowledge. We'll analyze that part later because the difference between what has been confirmed and what has been alleged is crucial. Sadly. An unbelievable sadness, an unimaginable sadness, yes. And once again, I can push aside my own sadness and look at those young girls and ask myself, my God, how could that happen to those girls? But before we delve into Jeffrey Epstein's case, you need to understand just how high Bill Gates' standing was before these things came to light. For nearly 20 years, Bill Gates was the richest man on the planet. Not just rich, but untouchable. He publicly pledged to give away almost his entire enormous fortune through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, one of the largest philanthropic organizations ever established. He positioned himself as a model of a responsible billionaire. He received an honorary knighthood from the British royal family. He was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by Barack Obama. In 2005, he appeared on magazine covers as a global humanitarian icon. Bill Gates is more than just a tech mogul. He's the blueprint for a benevolent billionaire. Then the pandemic hit. What do you think about these hidden aspects of Bill Gates? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel to support me. For years, Bill Gates has warned about the inevitability of global pandemics. When COVID appeared, he was suddenly everywhere. Interviews, conferences, discussions on global health, funding for vaccine research. He was seen by many as a de facto authority on public health. Supporters saw foresight. Critics saw abuse of power. They argued that he was unelected, yet wielded immense influence without public accountability. Conspiracy theories erupted, accusing him of profiting from vaccines or using global health initiatives to manipulate the system. At the time, much of that was dismissed as mere background noise. But what was destroying his reputation now wasn't conspiracy theories. It was history being recorded. By 2021, the image Bill Gates had carefully cultivated over decades was beginning to crack. He and Melinda Gates announced they would end their 27-year marriage. In a joint statement, they wrote that they no longer believed they could continue to grow together as a couple in the next phase of their lives. To the public, it felt abrupt. For decades, Bill Gates had been seen as the Harvard dropout genius, co-founder of Microsoft, and revolutionary personal computer. It was at Microsoft that he met Melinda Gates. He was the boss. She was a product manager. She initially rejected him, but he persevered. When the relationship became serious, he famously compiled a list of pros and cons of whether marriage would hinder running Microsoft. They married in Hawaii. Melinda Gates left the company 2 years later to focus on raising their 3 children. For years, that image was disciplined, stable, and clean. Then the divorce shattered it all. It wasn't one particular moment or one specific thing that happened. It just came to a point where so much was there that I realized it wasn't healthy anymore, and I couldn't trust what we had. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported that Microsoft had opened an internal investigation into an alleged affair between Bill Gates and an employee nearly 2 decades earlier. Bill Gates later stepped down from Microsoft's board of directors. In an interview with CBS, when asked if there was more than one instance of infidelity, Melinda Gates' response was cautious but cryptic. The New York Times later reported that Bill Gates had pursued women on numerous occasions, including emailing an employee to invite her to dinner and writing, If this makes you uncomfortable, pretend it never happened. That statement alone raised many suspicions. But according to many reports, what troubled Melinda Gates most wasn't just the infidelity. Melinda Gates said she only met Jeffrey Epstein once and later described him as disgusting. She called him the embodiment of evil. She felt extremely uncomfortable with her husband's association with a convicted sex offender. And this is a crucial timeline. A New York Times investigation revealed that Bill Gates met with Jeffrey Epstein multiple times starting in 2011. That was years after Jeffrey Epstein was convicted in 2008 of soliciting child prostitution and required to register as a sex offender. Despite that public record, the meetings continued. According to reports, Jeffrey Epstein even downplayed his crimes during meetings at his Manhattan home, reportedly comparing them to something as trivial as stealing a baguette. Bill Gates has since admitted that meeting with Jeffrey Epstein was a mistake. And you know, I've said that I regret having those dinners, and there's absolutely nothing new about that. Is there a lesson for him, or for anyone else looking at this? Well, he's dead now, so overall you always have to be cautious. But when you combine that admission with the recently surfaced emails linking Jeffrey Epstein, emails alleging extramarital affairs with Russians and secret antibiotics, the situation no longer resembles a simple misjudgment. And that's where this story shifts from reputational damage to legacy damage. Because Bill Gates has built a global image based on intellect, innovation, and large-scale philanthropy. But reputation isn't built solely on what someone creates. It's shaped by decisions made behind closed doors. And now, whether he likes it or not, those decisions are no longer private. He claims he met Jeffrey Epstein because of Epstein's connections to wealthy individuals who were supposedly interested in donating to global health initiatives. That's the official explanation. However, Bill Gates is now just one of many powerful figures whose names appear in millions of pages of newly released communications from Jeffrey Epstein. In emails that Jeffrey Epstein allegedly wrote to himself in July 2013, he claimed that he helped Bill Gates obtain drugs after encounters with Russian women, and that he facilitated several extramarital affairs. In another message, Jeffrey Epstein wrote that Bill Gates had asked him to delete emails mentioning an alleged sexually transmitted disease and requested antibiotics so they could be discreetly given to Melinda Gates. These claims stem from Jeffrey Epstein's communications and have not been publicly confirmed by Bill Gates, but this association alone has significantly damaged his public standing. I think we're having a reassessment in society, aren't we? No girl, absolutely no girl, should be put in the situation they were put in by Jeffrey Epstein and whatever is going on with all the different people around him. So, any remaining questions about what I can't even begin to understand, those questions are for those people, and even for my ex-husband. They need to answer those things, not me. It seems Jeffrey Epstein wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. That email is false. So I don't know what he was thinking in there. It just reminds me that every minute I spent with him, I regret and I apologize for doing it. Bill Gates built his reputation on intellect, innovation, and philanthropy on a scale few individuals in history have achieved. However, reputation isn't just defined by philanthropic contributions or technological achievements. Do you believe Bill Gates' explanation or Jeffrey Epstein's documents? Share your thoughts below, and remember to like and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth analysis. These stories are also shaped by personal decisions made behind closed doors, and regardless of the impact of his philanthropic work, those decisions are now inseparable from his legacy. Stories like this illustrate how difficult it can be to determine which information to trust and how influence and power intertwine behind the scenes. But to fully understand why we're here, it's crucial to step back and consider the broader concerns that have plagued Bill Gates for decades. Questions about his influence and the source of his vast fortune didn't suddenly appear with Jeffrey Epstein. They had been building for years, particularly during Microsoft's dominance of the technology industry. These concerns reached a major turning point in 1998, when Bill Gates and Microsoft were accused of violating antitrust and monopoly regulations. Bill Gates was asked to testify in court, and the case attracted considerable public attention. Around the same time, the dot-com bubble burst, causing Microsoft's stock price to plummet and putting the company under immense pressure. While Microsoft ultimately survived thanks to its scale and market position, the antitrust lawsuit marked a shift in public perception. Although the company remained powerful, Bill Gates's image as an untouchable visionary of technology began to change. It was during this period that he increasingly shifted his focus to philanthropy and long-term reputation management. Over the years, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has distributed approximately $320 million to media-related initiatives. These grants include funding for major organizations such as CNN and NBC News, along with press associations and international news organizations. While these contributions are publicly listed, there is limited transparency regarding how the funds are ultimately used. The foundation primarily discloses grants explicitly designated for media campaigns and does not necessarily account for indirect funding streams supporting academic publications, medical journals, or research institutions that later influence public reporting. Therefore, the total financial footprint influencing media coverage may exceed the reported $320 million. This context helps explain why, for many years, Bill Gates received largely positive news coverage despite recurring controversies. Beyond its involvement in media, the Gates Foundation also plays a significant financial role in global health policy. Besides the United States and China, the foundation is one of the largest contributors to the World Health Organization. Such contributions exert significant influence in shaping global health discussions and funding priorities. At the same time, despite billions of dollars given away through charity, Bill Gates's personal net worth has at least doubled since the 1990s, his investments expanding into many sectors, including agriculture. By 2021, Bill Gates had become the largest private owner of farmland in the United States, controlling over 269,000 acres through subsidiaries such as Cascade Investment LLC. Many of these acquisitions occurred during the economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, when land prices fell. The initial purchases were linked to anonymous investors, until investigative reports connected them to Bill Gates. After being publicly announced, the acquisitions were described as strategic agricultural investments. However, controlling such vast tracts of farmland entails significant influence over production, supply chains, and agricultural operations. Bill Gates has also funded research on genetically modified crops and has publicly advocated for synthetic and alternative meat products. Depending on the perspective, these investments could be seen as forward-looking innovation or a further consolidation of influence. Notably, Bill Gates's agricultural land acquisitions accelerated around 2011, the same time his meetings with Jeffrey Epstein are believed to have begun, long after Epstein's conviction in 2008. Bill Gates's official explanation for his meetings with Jeffrey Epstein was that they focused on global health initiatives and potential philanthropic opportunities. That's the official information. Philanthropy, networking, discussing funding. However, those meetings took place long after Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 conviction for soliciting child prostitution, making this ongoing connection difficult to ignore. Bill Gates' connection with Jeffrey Epstein is also believed to have contributed to the breakdown of his marriage. Around 2019, as public reports of Bill Gates' meetings with Jeffrey Epstein increased, Melinda Gates consulted divorce lawyers. She later made it clear that she was uncomfortable with the relationship, stating, "I made it clear to him that I didn't like him meeting with Jeffrey Epstein." Her discomfort was not vague, and it was no longer a private matter. There were also reports that Bill Gates sometimes visited Jeffrey Epstein as a way to escape the stresses of his marriage. Bill Gates always described this relationship as a mistake and a failure of judgment. But critics argue that repeatedly meeting with a convicted sex offender for years goes far beyond a single mistake. In an interview with PBS, when pressed about Jeffrey Epstein's background, Bill Gates admitted that meeting him was a huge mistake, reiterating that the connection was wrong. Most recently, according to NBC News, Bill Gates has admitted to extramarital affairs while continuing to deny any criminal wrongdoing. He has denied deeper involvement in criminal activities. However, when those admissions are juxtaposed with Jeffrey Epstein's alleged email drafts mentioning meetings with Russian women and medical concerns, the overall picture becomes far more damaging to his carefully constructed image. And as Bill Gates' personal reputation declines, questions also arise about Microsoft's long-term trajectory. For much of Microsoft's history, the company has been defined by dominance and innovation. There have been mistakes, but the overall direction has been forward. However, over the past decade, Microsoft has experienced a fair share of stalled products and failed experiments. Windows Phone is a prime example of a grand initiative that never quite achieved traction. While the company has found success in areas like cloud computing and video games, critics argue that Microsoft has struggled to lead cultural or technological boundaries as it once did. The operating systems that once defined the modern PC era have evolved more slowly, and the sense of groundbreaking innovation that characterized the company's early years has diminished. The larger story isn't simply about a meeting, a scandal, or a divorce. It's about how power, influence, reputation, and legacy intertwine over time. Bill Gates spent decades building the image of a visionary technologist and global philanthropist. But legacy isn't determined solely by philanthropic contributions or corporate success. It's shaped by connections, decisions, and public accountability. Now, I want to hear your opinion. Do you think Bill Gates' reputation has been permanently damaged? Or do you believe his philanthropic work is more important than these controversies? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you've watched this far, remember to hit the like button so more people can see this analysis. Please share this video with anyone following the developments surrounding Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein. And if you're new here, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next in-depth analyses.